Hello, my name is Mike, I'm from Access Irrigation, and in this video we'll be looking at 9-volt latching solenoid valves, and we'll be wiring them into the node controller. How do you tell that it's a 9-volt latching solenoid? Well, you have two specific wire colours, a red and a black. That indicates that it's a DC voltage. If it was AC, there'd be two red wires. So just make sure you've got the right wires to start with, otherwise you might have a little bit of a problem. So we'll be wiring this manifold, or these valves, up to the node controller. The node controller is really clever. It actually has two 9-volt batteries in it, and that will power it up to 2 years. It has a Bluetooth operation, so you'll have an app on your phone that you'll download, and then you'll be able to program it and set it up from there. But it's really clever in the fact that you can wire up to 4 solenoid valves into it, but it also has the ability to have both a rain sensor and a soil moisture sensor. So it's got the software built in for both of those, which makes it really clever. What you'll notice on the controller itself is the wires, number 1 to 4 for the actual trigger wires on the solenoids, and then you have a black, which is our common return for each of our valves. So keep the yellow and the grey wires, where our sensor wires, out of the way, and let's have a look at these. First of all, I'm going to just trim them off because we don't want too much cable. So I'm just going to trim the ends slightly just so we haven't got any bare wires anywhere. So let's take those out of the way. Then we're going to look at our solenoid wires, and again these are fairly long. You want to keep them fairly long so you can work at a reasonable distance from them. So I just take them all and just take about 150 mil off the ends of them, just to keep them neat. Right, so let's start with our trigger wires. So we want to be able to wire that one into number 1, which we've got here. So we'll take those two. So that's the red wire to the red wire, which is number 1, as indicated on the controller. And then we'll use a grease crimp, which are the best and most secure way of fitting these, and making sure we then get a watertight connection, because believe it or not, an underground manifold can fill up with water, especially during times of heavy rain. So we want something that's going to be totally waterproof. That not only goes for the grease crimps, but for the controller as well, totally sealed. So that can be immersed in water and it will still operate okay. So we've got number 1 sorted. Now we'll take number 2 and we'll wire into number 2 of the number 2 valve. So again, just make sure you get these wires pushed fully through. Now it's more important on a DC latching valve to make sure you get your wiring connections absolutely crack on. It's 250 milliseconds is the signal from the controller to each of these solenoids. So you can imagine if you haven't quite got the connection correct, you're going to lose that signal and your valve's not going to open or not going to close. So just be aware of that. And make sure you squeeze those fully down. And finally, number 4 goes in there like that. Ooh. Okay, lovely. So we've got our triggers, we've now got our common, and we've only got 1 black wire here, but we've got 4 or 5 wires to do it. So the best way to do it is to take 2 and 1 bit of wire that we've cut off, and then pop them through and then we've effectively got a fly lead then. Make sure they're all through there. You can see the grease coming out of that one there. And the other two, do exactly the same for those. So you pop those through. And then we've got a fly lead from the bits we've taken off. And then make sure that is nice and tight. Okay, then that gives us 2 fly leads, which we can just cut off. And then that can go into our common from our controller, because we've got 3 wires now and we've got 3 inlets for our little connection. So pop those in. Okay, so that's the majority of our wiring done. So we've got our 4 trigger wires, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we've got our commons together. Don't tape them up or do anything with them until you've tested it. And you can manually test it once you put the batteries in, and then you can use your app on your phone to test it as well. Just make sure they're all working. And with latching solenoid valves, always operate them manually a few times just to reset them, because you don't know whether they're open at the moment or closed. So there you go, really simple.